He didn't know her name. He didn't even know where she was from. All he knew was that she was standing next to the turnstile, holding a worn bag and looking down, as if calculating time and money at the same time. It was a typical late afternoon, one of those when the city seems more tired than its own residents. The bus was about to leave when he saw her hesitate. The conductor was already looking impatient. Some people murmured, annoyed. And in that second of uncomfortable silence, he moved. "How much do you need?" he asked, taking his wallet out of his pocket. She looked surprised, as if kindness was something rare. "2 reis," she replied quietly, almost in disbelief. He handed her the bill, the conductor took it, and the turnstile swung open. She thanked him with a shy smile, sat down on the seat next to the window, and remained silent. He stood a little further back, holding onto the iron bar, but looking out the window, trying not to think too much. But he did think. He thought that maybe he hadn't done much, but he also knew that sometimes a little is everything. He had no idea that this simple, almost automatic gesture would be the starting point of something that would completely change his life. In fact, before continuing this story, if you're already feeling that connection, that desire to know what will happen between them, then subscribe to the channel now. This is just the beginning. There's much more to come. And when this story reaches a point you can't even imagine, you'll want to be here to see it. So turn on the bell, leave a like, and get ready. Because what was just a bus transfer will turn into something that not even fate would dare to predict. That day, he got off 3 stops later and went about his routine. Another night of work, another one of those journeys that end late and yield little. He didn't mention what happened to anyone. He didn't see anything special. He just left with the slight feeling that he had done the right thing. But she didn't forget. Sitting in that armchair, her eyes fixed on the windows fogged up by the cold night breeze, she thought about how that simple gesture had touched her. Not because of the value, not because of the help itself, but because of the way it was done, naturally, without expecting anything in return. There was something about that guy she couldn't quite put her finger on. A sincerity in his eyes, an absence of judgment. And that, for someone like her, was rare. In the days that followed, the two went their separate ways. She, inside mirrored rooms, making million-dollar decisions, attending meetings with directors and boards. He, answering calls, taking orders, dealing with hurried customers. She, in elegant clothes, surrounded by executives. He was in a simple uniform, counting coins to catch the bus. Worlds that would never cross paths again, or so they both believed. Until the unexpected decided to play another game. It was a Tuesday. The day had started with rain and ended with a clear sky, as if the weather had also decided to change. He was standing in line at the coffee shop near the bus station. It was the only place that served decent coffee after 8 at night. And that's when he heard a familiar voice order an espresso with milk in front of him. He slowly turned his head. It was her. This time, unlike the image he had of her, she was well dressed, wearing heels, her hair tied back, and carrying a briefcase. But the smile was the same. She recognized him too, and they looked at each other for a few seconds until she said, "I think I owe you 2 reis." He smiled, surprised. With interest, "Huh," he joked. She laughed. And that's where it all started again. They sat down together. The conversation, which started out shy, soon turned into small talk. They discovered they had common interests, that time passed more quickly when they were together. She avoided talking about her professional life. She just said she was going through a period of change, that her job was exhausting and that sometimes all she wanted was a hot coffee and a simple conversation. He understood. Perhaps because that was exactly what he had to offer. In the following weeks, they met more often. Sometimes by chance, sometimes by arrangement. Coffee, walks, conversations. Neither of them rushed things. But little by little, the connection grew. She felt comfortable around him, and he just knew that his day was better when he saw her. But there was something he didn't know. Something she kept putting off telling him. With each encounter, the revelation seemed more difficult. How could she tell him she was the CEO of one of the largest companies in the industry? How could she tell him her life was surrounded by numbers, strategic decisions, and gala events? She was afraid that when he found out, he would pull away. That he would see too many differences. That he would think he had been deceived. And so she kept her secret, while her heart filled up. And he, without realizing it, was being drawn to something he didn't understand. He just thought he was lucky to have met someone like her. And even without knowing it, he couldn't go a day without thinking about her. Time passed, and the day came when she realized either she told him, or she lost him. Because what she felt could no longer be kept silent, and what she was hiding weighed too heavily on her. She arranged a date. A simple dinner at a restaurant away from the city center. She arrived early and ordered wine. She waited. When he arrived, she smiled. But inside, her heart was racing. Today was the day. And that's exactly where we stop. Because the next part is where everything changes. If you want to know how he reacted when he found out who she really was, if their love was strong enough to overcome the barriers between them, then you need to stay tuned. Part 2 is coming, and you won't want to miss it. Take advantage now and subscribe to the channel, activate the bell and make sure you're the first to see what comes next. Because this story, my friend, hasn't even really begun yet. He arrived at the restaurant without knowing that that night would be one he would remember forever. He was wearing his best shirt, his cleanest sneakers, and a cologne he only wore on special occasions. Still, he felt too plain for that low-lit environment with tables lined up as if everything there had been calculated. When he saw her waiting for him, sitting facing the window with a half-empty glass of wine, he smiled. She seemed calm, but her gaze revealed that something needed to be said. He sat down across from her, and for a moment, time seemed to slow down. She looked at him with the lightness of someone in a hurry, but choosing delicacy so as not to hurt him. And she said, "Before anything else, I need to tell you who I really am." He kept smiling, but his heart raced. He wasn't expecting a confession. At least not in that tone. "Of course," he replied. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath. "My name is Clara Martins. And I'm the CEO of Martins & Dias, the technology company you've probably seen on billboards around town." He blinked slowly, as if his brain was trying to process all the words. Martins & Dias was a national leader, with international contracts, a presence at major events, and led by someone who, until then, he believed was just another passenger on that bus. The silence between them lasted seconds, but it seemed to last forever. That day, I wasn't in disguise. I had just left work at the end of my rope, with no car, no driver, no warning. I wanted to walk alone, think. And I ran out of change. You know the rest. He remained silent. Not out of anger. Not out of disappointment. But because he was trying to reorganize everything he had felt up to that point. It wasn't just about status. It was about everything she had omitted. And at the same time, it was impossible to deny that, from the beginning, she had been herself. The woman from the cafes, the conversations, the light smiles. The Clara he met wasn't a character. She was real. "Are you angry?" she asked, her eyes watering. He took a deep breath. Surprised. But not angry. She smiled, relieved but still unsure. "It's just that I've never met anyone who treated me the way you did. Without interest. Without suspicion. I needed that. And I didn't want that truth to scare you away." He looked her in the eyes. "You know what surprises me the most?" he said. "It's the fact that you trusted me. Even though you are who you are, even though you could have chosen any path. You chose to live this with me." She held his hand on the table. "For the first time, without reservation. Because you're the only person who has seen me for who I really am in the last few years." The sincerity of the touch, the warmth between their fingers, sealed what words could not express. They had dinner in peace, smiled, reminisced about the beginning. And for the first time, they were whole for each other. No lies, no mysteries, no fear. In the days that followed, things changed. Not in terms of feelings, but in terms of circumstances. He began to understand her routine. Her commitments, deadlines, appointments with people he only knew from television. Sometimes she had to rush off for trips, meetings, or events he wasn't part of. He, on the other hand, continued his work routine, more discreet, more simple. But now with a secret, he was in love with someone who carried a whole world on her shoulders. The media began to speculate. Photos of them in cafes, on walks, began to appear on social media. He became the subject of scrutiny. People approached him to ask if he was Clara Martin's boyfriend. He was uncomfortable in the spotlight. But he didn't run away. Because he knew what he felt was real. Clara noticed this. And she tried to protect him as much as she could. She avoided taking him to public events, preferring private meetings and short trips to unfamiliar places. One of those days, during a trip to a coastal town where no one recognized them, sitting on the sand at sunset, she asked, "Can you imagine a future with me, even with all the baggage I carry?" He didn't hesitate. "I can. Because when I look at you, I don't see the CEO. I see the woman who smiled at me on the bus. And who changed the way I see the world. She was moved. What seemed unlikely to so many was simple for them. Because where many saw difference, they saw balance. He brought peace to her days. She brought meaning to his dreams. And together, they built something that didn't need labels. Just truth. But every love story faces trials. And theirs would come from where they least expected it. An international investor in the company found out about the relationship and, for strategic reasons, began to pressure Clara to break up. He claimed that the company's public image could be affected. That she was getting involved with someone outside the norm of the industry. The advisors began to whisper, and part of the board became uncomfortable. Clara found herself torn. On one side, the man she loved. On the other, a structure built with years of effort. In one of the most tense meetings the company had ever seen, she was asked directly, "Are you willing to give up rational decisions for an emotional involvement?" She replied firmly, "I'm not giving up anything. I'm reminding you that this company was founded by people. And that people also love." But she knew the pressure wouldn't let up. She needed to talk to him. Tell him everything. Find out what he was thinking. See if she could handle that kind of exposure. They scheduled another meeting. This time, at her house. No formal dinners, no distractions. Just the two of them. She explained everything. The risks, the comments, the veiled threats. And when she finished, she said, "If you want to walk away, I'll understand." He was silent for a few seconds. He got up, walked to the window, looked at the horizon, and then said, "You changed my life that day on the bus. And even if the whole world is against us, I won't leave your side. Because you are my truth." She approached him, moved. They embraced. And there, in that embrace, they decided they would face everything. Together. Because their love was greater than any difference in position, class, or expectations. It was real love. And what is real, cannot be erased. And this is where we pause again. Because part 3 will reveal what happened when they decided to challenge everything. Including the limits of their own destiny. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. Turn on the bell, because the ending of this story, I promise you, is one that will stay with you for a long time. If you've made it this far and haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Don't waste another second. This story is about to challenge everything you thought you knew about love, courage, and choices. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and hold on tight. Because now you're going to find out what happened when they decided to face everything. Together. After that hug, nothing seemed difficult anymore. Clara and Daniel, finally together, had made their choice. They knew the road would be long, they knew the world around them might not understand, but there was a certainty pulsing between them, what they felt was too real to be left behind. And that was enough. But as in every story where love clashes with the system, the real battle was not only fought with feelings, but in everyday life. In the days following the decision, the company faced more scrutiny, questions in interviews, and rumors behind the scenes. Clara, with all her serenity, faced everything with elegance. She avoided commenting on the matter publicly, but those who knew her noticed something different, an even stronger force in every word, in every stance. It was as if love had given her a new kind of power, the power to no longer negotiate her truth. Daniel, for his part, kept his life simple, but now surrounded by a world he had previously only observed from afar. He began to study more, to inform himself, to adapt without losing his essence. He never tried to fit in. He simply decided to understand her universe better, not to change himself, but to walk alongside her with greater awareness. Over time, suspicious glances gave way to respect. People realized that there was no scandal, no lies. There was just a story that didn't fit the mold. And everything that doesn't fit the mold is scary at first. But then, it inspires. The couple's first public appearance was at a charity event organized by Clara's company. Daniel arrived hand in hand with her. Photographers captured the moment. And in that instant, something changed. The image of the two together appeared on news sites, but with a new narrative, the CEO and the man she chose for love. There were no more judgments, only admiration. The company didn't go under. On the contrary, it grew. Because people began to see humanity in their leadership. Employees commented behind the scenes on how Clara seemed lighter, closer. How decisions seemed fairer. How the energy of the place had changed. And in the midst of it all, Daniel, without ever holding any position, became an essential part of everything. Clara said he was her balance. That in the most tense meetings, all she had to do was remember the simple way he explained things for everything to make sense. And he, outside the office, said she was his daily inspiration. Not for what she had, but for what she did. For the way she dealt with the weight of decisions and still found time to love. Time passed. A year after that night at the restaurant, the two were back in the same place. The same wine, the same table, but now with one detail: Daniel was holding a small box in his hands. When she arrived, he stood up, smiled, and said, "I don't have a fortune. I don't have an important last name. But I know one thing for sure, you are the woman of my life." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, but one filled with truth. "Will you marry me?" Clara, moved, said yes without hesitation. Because there, in front of her, was not the man who paid for her ticket. It was the man who overcame prejudice, fear, and exposure. It was the man who saw in her more than just a job. It was, simply, love. They got married in a small ceremony. Just close friends and family, nothing grand. Because they had already lived enough under the eyes of the world. That moment was theirs alone. During their vows, Clara said, "You taught me to see the world with fewer filters. And to see myself with more truth." Daniel replied, "You showed me that love cannot be bought or sought after. It just happens, when we least expect it. And if you think that's the end, you're wrong. Because this story, like all great stories, doesn't end. It just changes phase." Today, Clara and Daniel lead a social project together. They created a foundation that helps young people from communities enter the technology market. They combined her knowledge with his vision. Together, they change lives. And every time they tell their story, Daniel repeats the same phrase: "It was just a bus transfer, but it changed everything." And now I ask you, how many times have you ignored the chance to transform someone's life with a simple gesture? How many times did you think it was just another ordinary day, and let the extraordinary pass you by? Because this story is not just about them. It's about what happens when we choose to see beyond appearances. It's about not judging. It's about making room for chance to do its work. It's about remembering that life's great encounters always start small. So, if this story touched you in any way, if it made your heart race or your eyes sparkle, like it now, share this video with someone you love, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Here we tell stories that don't need to be made up to be incredible. Stories that show that love still exists, that destiny is real, and that yes, a simple bus ticket can be the ticket to a lifetime with someone we least expected. And it doesn't stop there. In the next video, you'll hear other stories that were born out of the unlikely. Loves that arose where no one believed they could. Bonds created where there was only haste. And who knows, maybe the next story will be yours. Turn on the bell. Because there's more coming. And you won't want to miss it.